Fate Extra CCC. The acclaimed and awaited follow-up to Fate Extra that, while a follow-up, is one of a vastly different part of the moon. Not a sequel, but a sort of midquel. A story not of the strife between stability and prosperity, nor the triumph over another's ideal. Instead, something much closer to all of us. A story of hearts and egos, but still carrying true the star that guides us through life's uncertainties. Uncertainties that our protagonist, Kishinami Hakuno, and other masters of the Mooncell's Holy Grail War find themselves entrenched in. Leo and Julius Bastario Harway, Shinji Mato, Gato Monji, and two new unbeknownst masters. Kiara Sesshoin, clad in contrasting wiles of a saint, and Jinako Karigiri, a hikikomori holed up in the janitor's closet, immersed in her own world with not a reason or care of what's outside. For they find themselves far from the reminder of death looming at the end of each week. Taken from the Grail War and set adrift upon an old abandoned school building in the far side of the moon. With no memory of how they got there, nor an idea of the contents of the war they know they competed in, are trapped in this unknown space. In this seemingly peaceful setting with no reason to be at each other's throats, Leo forms a student council and hopes to fight under one goal: escape from the far side of the moon and return to the Holy Grail War. Though not everyone shares that same sentiment, with Kishinami in the vanguard and aided by the health manager AI Sakura, plunge into the depths of the Sakura Labyrinth, their one and only clue as to their escape. Venturing into the labyrinth with their servant, you search various dungeons, each with their own unique aesthetic, environments, and layouts, in hopes to uncover more about this situation. Of course, that's not without obstacles lying in wait around every corner. When it comes to the gameplay, much of what you would expect from Extra holds true here. A dungeon crawler where, same as before, are given the choice between Saber, Caster, Archer, and one more surprise pick. Each with their own unique gameplay styles and skill sets in the rock-paper-scissors combat scenarios. Like Extra, I found this to be one of the weaker aspects of the game. But the addition of generous saves and retry prompts in the case of failure, as well as a clear stated dungeon level, are quality of life changes that limits the tedium. And as you fight and explore, we'll come across the heart of these floors. The Sentinels, the core of these labyrinths, and vice versa. Both walls and guardians of the floors, and the key through, the secrets they hold deep within. For this arena is a mental landscape, each floor a representation of that secret. So to break the physical and mental wall around their hearts, those secrets are things the council have to draw out themselves. It's less of a battle of strength and more of one of wits and understanding, bringing one of the many themes of the story at large. The egos that make us. The multifaceted cores, however unfavorable, that no doubt exist. So just how should one deal with them? It's an idea that only grows and evolves, especially when caught in the sight of the devilish little self-proclaimed Kohai brimming with the malignant vibrancy. BB. One moment jovial in an overly cutesy TV personality kind of way, messing with and tormenting the entirety of the growing student council. Then, as if that visage had cracked, spews pure, unfiltered malice. She is a dominating power that constantly has you guessing, not only her true motives, but how she goes about seeing them through. Are such things contradictions, or is this all planned and calculated? Are there perhaps any other connections to the Sakura AI by our side? You can never really tell with her, so as she is able to bring out laughs, can force chills in the same breath. With this matter of uncertainty and flipping personalities, you could say she is the heart of CCC, scraping out her own and others to expand this abyssal labyrinth. The deeper you go, the more who will confront you, those you will learn about, and how all of this is connected. Each passing day is cast in a veil of mystery, able to have you continually question what is going on, all the while carrying such a light air in spite of the tension with purport, as the personalities, friend or foe, shine through with their quick-witted banter and eccentricities, never straying too far, however, both in spite and because the game excels at keeping you in the dark, having you guess alongside your allies as hints fall in and out of your grasp. Why do the memories of those there seem to contradict others? Why are some with their servants and others without? What course of action should be taken to defy these increasingly insurmountable odds? So many things come up you feel the need to keep track of. Hints scattered throughout the dungeon, Bibi herself, and even those close to Kishinami. You are put in the brisk of a well-constructed barrage of questions that refuse to leave the mind. But when it comes to keeping up this momentum, however, that's where things get a bit tricky. CCC follows a simple formula. Collect 3 secrets, all the while slowly unveiling mysteries, final confrontation, and repeat. When it comes to the narrative, this is really my one complaint. And a pretty big one. I can't help but feel the story and the feeling of excitement in each chapter is held back by the format it sticks to for its entirety. There are events that do shake things up every now and then, hints of the true mystery hidden within the layers of the labyrinth, but you never switch tracks. While you learn about the train and the destination you are barreling towards, you can always see how you will get there. The train may stop, some complications may force an unexpected turn, but around the 2nd or 3rd chapter or so, you kind of get the general idea of when and where you'll arrive back on track, where you'll have something that slows your progress, when you'll end up doing some arbitrary task that takes a bit too long for the payoff at the end. That is usually why the best parts are right at the end of the chapters, because they have that legroom to fundamentally surprise you with some unexpected twists. And for a moment, it's filled with excitement, maybe anxiety of where this will go. That is, until you get put back in the same spot and go through the motions once again. It's a repetitive cycle that can wane interest, but maybe only if you aren't aware of it. You see, to get the full story, 2 playthroughs are required. On your first go, you are locked into the normal route, but going through the game again on the same save will unlock choices that bring you to the true route. And on that second playthrough, knowing what to focus on made it surprisingly a lot more enjoyable, as the content of each chapter is written in such a way that puts focus purely on its characters. Yes, it is repetitive, but so that it can be impartial in how it deconstructs its varying antagonizing and friendly forces. It's all centered around breaking down one's egos after all, giving way to a wholly intricate and well-developed cast that hopes to grip your heart like Kishinami does theirs. Layers of heart and mind unravel as they collect the parts hidden even from the holder's eyes. Naturally, you come to see the multiple sides of each of the Sentinels, some more farther from the grasp of understanding than others, but nevertheless are those who share the trait of humanity, whether or not they were born an organic being. Both the individual parts and the whole are laid out on each floor, cleverly shown and hinted at as you make your way through. It becomes a sort of minigame, using your own thoughts and discoveries to find the secret garden yourself, and always end up with this all-rounded view of the one in question, the values they hold, the flaws they may or may not be aware of, and their own troubles they strive to deal with. Explored just as uniquely and varied as the rest, shows that despite all we go through, whether by chance or choice, have reasons for the mental conclusions we reach and the forthcoming actions we take because of them. It lays out a sort of core that no matter the unforgivable actions they commit, have a shred of humanity we can sympathize with, ultimately leading to a case where you want to care for and, like Hakuno, strive to understand them. This isn't just the case for CCC originals either. Even those who are no more than a mere obstacle off to the side in Extra bear just as much depth within their heart than Extra might have let on. An infamous turned famous example is Theomaniac Gato Monji. Who knew the one who did little else but ramble about in Extra would actually become one of the most endearing? Sure, his erratic behavior in spurts is just as prevalent. In fact, being allied with him lets it show just how out there this guy is. And because of it, all the clearer is the charm that lies in between the lines of his words and actions. Even Leo, who had a fair run, plays a damn good supporting role. And here in the far side, with no reason to be strung up by the politics and responsibilities his heritage birthed him in, can finally let out his repressed adolescent exuberance, much to the dismay of Julius. The new circumstances give reasons for those who are forced to stay tough and cold as steel to have a slightly loose demeanor that brings out more sides than we could see prior. Shinji, Julius, Rin, and Rani are not left behind either, with just as meaningful a story to bridge as everyone else. Of course, this extends to Kishinami and their servant as well. My two playthroughs involved one with Saber and the other with Gilgamesh. Both their relationship with their servant and their servant's relationship with others was more than enough to spice up a new playthrough, with Gilgamesh here being probably one of my favorite interpretations of his character and fate, making the second playthrough a lot more interesting. Like with the other servants appearing in the far side, his level has been reset, humbling him quite quickly. How he deals with this utter humiliation and of course being contracted to a fairly ordinary Hakuno in the beginning brings a sort of tension to the relationship. In one way, shaking up the standard flow of the game, as he is yet another factor you can't quite predict. But it's exactly because of this that makes the relationship between him and Hakuno unlike anything else. Can this ordinary human, lacking any sense of purpose, truly live and stand alongside the king of heroes, who sees their endeavors as nothing more than entertainment? It's a slow but steady development that lets you see not only Gilgamesh's growth in a completely different light, especially compared to his Stay Night counterpart, but also Hakuno's development too. They have some pretty great reactions to the king's usual obstinacy. Though the characters are the core of any story, CCC puts special emphasis on their mind, reflected through Kishinami themselves. If Extra Hakuno is finding their purpose through resolve, CCC is Hakuno's purpose through heart. Their strive to understand the depths of the people who surround them, and being in their shoes turn that feeling of reflection inward. Especially when it comes to the side of their heart they adamantly tuck away. Perhaps it's an unsettling truth they have been struggling with, pushing it down to not have to think about it. Or maybe were never even aware of the true feelings lay deep in their heart. You get this deep, introspective look with almost everyone on the cast. Some you truly have to dig and discern yourself, not only through dialogue but the many dungeons you explore throughout the game. Some give a relaxing, at times ethereal vibe as you search and scan each floor. At times lavish with extravagant skyscraping buildings, the floors garnished with red carpet and ties with their avarice. Other times dreary under the imaginary sea, drowning under the weight of oppressive waters. It's another shame that there isn't much uniqueness mechanic-wise with these dungeons. There could have been another layer to these layers, of which only a few stick out. Again, they are mental landscapes, and while those few do play to that, are far and few between to make use of even a fraction of the potential this idea holds. Though, luckily, that isn't the case for the wider world of CCC. Even though Extra might have built its world on such interesting ideas and concepts, after all, the liberties of the Holy Grail War being a tournament held in a supercomputer on the moon is really cool in concept. Few times and for few twists did that feeling of being inside a digital world truly feel irreplaceable. Underutilized within the scope of the plot. This isn't a jab at Extra though. Its story didn't really necessitate all that depth. Simply using the near side of the moon as a backdrop for the contained story it wanted to tell. CCC, on the other hand, does, tying this digital world in the terms that make it relevant to both the plot and characters. What purpose the AIs hold, the intricacies of the moon cell's operations, and how the character skills interact with the environment all directly affect how Hakuno and the rest of the student council advance through the labyrinth. It all gives a feeling that this story couldn't happen under any other circumstances, in any other setting. It is one of the many parts that gives this whole work an identity of its own, a unique, unseen personality amongst the many other Nasu and even Type Moon works. Despite the imposing seriousness and urgency in the circumstances, it often finds itself snug in a comforting atmosphere of a romp, letting one soak in the moment, the importance of each second, talking with AIs or other masters in the school, exploring the dungeon, making sure to leave no item behind. It all exudes a light tone of relaxation in between the more tense moments. I mean, the main climactic event of each chapter is supposed to be a final sort of reflection for that chapter's antagonist, confronted by the inconsistencies and contradictions within their heart. And it is of course clad as a stripping minigame, picking at the petals of the flower to see the pistil for what it is. Not that those are wrong, but reminds us that humans aren't completely logical beings. We have flaws, some that go completely unnoticed by the self, or we can't always look within. It spares no punches even for those on the brink of a breakdown. As uncomfortable as it can be, softened words may not be what one needs, but a blunt strike to fully set it in. Not to be harshly ridiculed, but so that they can better understand themselves, and hopefully use that to change for the better. You get this sort of look at everyone here that may masquerade as a time of fun. The quips from the student council as Hakuno's in dire straits, the unserious opponents they often face. It's proof that despite everything, they are using the most of their time here. Be damned to the curse of death, the inevitable fate that awaits them once they all escape to the tournament, set so that only one may make it out alive. Here is a true escape from everything that lays outside. Play through it once and see the resolution for most of the individual pieces, and once more, a second time, for the picture to become clear. That last piece that puts the entire puzzle together. That is where the true feelings of CCC can be found. As complex a work as CCC, it can be summed up with one word, and that is heart. All the conceptions, intricacies, and nuance it holds. Heart. The surface and depths, much like the moon, has both its near and far sides. Those we openly display, those we keep to ourselves, for they may be intrusive to the self we maintain or the person we want to become. The human mind is complex and at times fragile. An unforeseen tragic event can stall our lives. A world that continues towards collapse leaves many in hardship, and on their own road to find hope within. But as much trouble as we can find ourselves in, whether by chance or our own doing, to be the best person we can be involves accepting or working through those contradictions. After all, they are inevitable. Having them doesn't mean we are weak or lesser for it, but strength comes in how we choose to move on. And the fuel for that is love. For something, for another, or humanity as a collective. That very love can bring us to the deepest depths of despair. but when held with true care and understanding, however, is the greatest push and inspiration we can have. What we will do for it and how we ultimately reach it is ultimately what defines us as humans. Love in self, no matter how split or illogical, is what gives us meaning to go on. A story of humanity and our potential with the heart we have. That is the essence of CCC. A story ripe with personality and care, though may not be the most thrilling in its structure, is not unlike life in that sense. We go through each repeating day, some much similar to others, but with a break from the mundane, meeting new people, finding ourselves in new situations, and at the end reflecting on all that has happened, we learn more and more about the others in our lives, the world, and equally as important, about ourselves. I think for any Fate or Type Moon fan, CCC is a must-play. Of course, not without extra before it. And though I cannot speak for the Extella games, after playing CCC, I recommend checking out the Foxtail manga. While there are similar plot beats, how it goes about handling them will bring quite the surprise, ending up in a position where both stories complement the other to bring about a more full idea of what CCC is and supposed to be. From interviews, a lot was cut from the original vision, whether due to hardware or game design limitations, and a good amount of that has found itself here. There are a lot of changes to the original formula that keeps the whole manga fresh. If you have yet to try out either, definitely go with the game first, then on a Foxtail. It will make things a lot more exciting and natural that way, as the foundation of CCC's story is kind of sped through to get to its own faster, and ends up being a whole emotional ride of its own. It's one of those stories that really managed to stick with you. I originally planned for this video to be half to a third of the length that has turned out to be, and that's because the more I thought about it, the more I wrote. That's really when it came to me just how masterful of a story it is. Its deep themes tied into every crevice of the game that has turned into one of my favorites. So personal, yet so broad in its approach of looking at the human psyche. And I think that's truly how far-reaching this heart is. If you are a fan of everything Fate and have yet to give the Extraverse a try, these games will not disappoint. Not sure about the Extella games though. I still have to give those a try one day. And with that, thank you all very much for watching. Later.